Welcome back. Paul Pukis is back with us, speaker and co-author with Amy Drill, Protect Yourself. Welcome back, Paul.
Happy to be here.
I know. Well, I'm happy to, I know you are. I'm happy to see you, buddy. What do you think about what John says? You get these people, they start down this path online trying to accomplish these certain aspects of their life, their finances, real estate, or in his case, being their own attorney, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you got to deal with the same thing.
Yeah, we do. And it's interesting. I think you talked about the space program earlier and just how, as Americans, we're trying to go, and not just Americans, but on the entire earth, trying to go an easier way of doing things. And a lot of that stuff is going online. And I do believe that a lot of business is going to be done online. But you're missing out one of the most important things of how we help each other. And that's the human interaction that you have, sitting face to face with someone and being able to ask questions and have a dialogue to learn about that person and to learn about their situation. So learning, what John's talking about in the preservation of your estate and to make sure that you're set up for when you move forward, if changes take place. Insurance is about taking care of the stuff you have now. So that's how it works together.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point when you start thinking about just that connection, because there's so much more you can learn about somebody to truly help them select maybe the right plan, the right insurance, the right will, even the right executor, as John was talking about, or just the right policy. Yeah. When you sit and you're talking to them and you're like, you're totally squirming in your chair, you're not telling me the truth right now. Let's tell me what's really going on.
Right. There's only so much you can do when you go online and it asks you a question and you can click on one of these three options. Well, what happens if one of those three options doesn't have anything to do with you or your situation? You still got to pick one of those three and move forward. Well, in the event of a claim, you really wish there was another option to pick, but you didn't have that choice because you were online. So that's where talking with a professional makes sense.
When you think about talking to a professional, life insurance is a big piece of this, because you start trying to, as you say, protect yourself or protect your family. What are some of those big questions that you work with people as far as with life insurance? Yeah,
life insurance is a different animal than your home and your auto stuff. It's definitely meant for different things, and there are two main types of life insurance out there. There's term insurance or temporary insurance, and the other is permanent insurance, or whole life is probably what it's more commonly referred to. And the difference is, when you have a question with someone, what is important to you right now? Is it the coverage for the kids because you have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and you want to make sure that they're taken care of, as any parent would? You want to make sure they have a better life than what you had growing up. You want to provide for their future. And sometimes that's where term insurance comes into play. It's a big dollar amount for a low monthly cost. When you get into permanent insurance, you talk about something that you will never outlive. It will always be there. As long as you're paying the insurance company, by contract, they're guaranteed to keep that policy in force until the day you die. Now, because they're guaranteed to pay out, you can see where that one's going to cost a little bit more money than the term insurance. Because, stats may change a little bit, but it's something like 96% of term insurance policies go unused. That means only 4% of them get used. That's why the cost is so low. Most people will outlive that policy. So that's some of the conversations. What do you want it to do? Do you want it for the kids? You need it right now, a big chunk, or do you want it to take care of things in the future where you would plan stuff with John and the permanent product would help make that assistant or that transition as you get older?
And, you start thinking about the team concept here, because you can't always come to these conclusions on your own. Right? I mean, being a team, if you're the person buying the insurance, no matter what type it is, and knowing what you need. Because I would imagine most people are like, yeah, 250,000, boom, sounds good, let's do that one. But there's this element of, I guess, to use my favorite sports as the analogy, football, where, you can be the quarterback, but you need other people on the field to help you accomplish this, and even know what route you should be running, and things of that nature.
Yeah. No, I think people can come to their own conclusions on their own with stuff, but a lot of times they'll just be wrong because they don't know what to do. I don't handle mortgages. There's a reason for that. I handle insurance. There's people out there that are fantastic at what they do, but they need a professional in specific situations. And that's where sitting down with someone, finding out what the needs are, and asking the questions, what do you want this to do for you? And do you have the monthly amount to commit to that, to make the payments?
And so when you start talking about these different these different pieces of insurance, what are some of the biggest questions that you think go unasked?
That's a great question to ask right away with no prior thought. Good job. Good job.
Well, you talk about online, you get these boxes that are checked.
Yeah.
And so what are some of those questions, if somebody were to go online, that they need to go, wow, this really isn't going to help me accomplish what's important to me?
Yeah, no, I know exactly where you're going. And I think what most folks do, because the industry has gone down to try and commoditize some of the insurance product in the insurance industry, they look at what they feel is legal or what they've been told is what they need, and then they look right at the bottom line, which is what the cost is. And there's so much in between that makes the plan make sense for you. You talked about a $250,000 policy. Well, do you need that for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30? How long do you need it? And has anyone asked you how long you need it so you can sit there and think, well, man, my kids are each 10. I bought my home 10 years ago, and that's a 30-year mortgage. Maybe a 20-year term policy will get my kids out of the house, sufficient coverage in case something happens, and the mortgage will be paid off. Maybe that's what I need the life insurance policy for. But if you don't have someone asking those questions about what's your intent with this policy, you're not going to know, because they don't ask you what your intent is on the internet. That's not one of the radial buttons you can select. So those are the conversations you need to have with somebody.
Yeah. So when people are going through that, do you think that just allows them to maybe skimp on what they need because they're not drawing any type of emotional or personal affiliation with the plan that they're purchasing?
Could be. Or I think that a lot of folks, when you have a conversation that lasts just a little bit of time, the amount of coverage that they probably selected for themselves is inadequate. They think that $250,000 or $500,000, well, that's a big number. Yeah, it is. You know, if you were handed a check right now, it's a decent sized number, but that may not even come close to replacing your income that you're going to make for the next 30 years that your family would miss out on. So to have that conversation with somebody like, man, you're right. I'm 30 years away from retirement. I'm making 50 or 100,000 a year. That 250 or 500K policy is not even going to come close to providing my family the current lifestyle they're used to.
And that just has to be, I mean, that's kind of the terms, I think, that working with somebody like you, that's what it puts it in. Do you want your family to maintain some level of lifestyle?
Right.
I mean, do you want them to, right? I mean, isn't that kind of what comes down to?
That's what it is. And that's what you want life insurance to do. And how you structure it, there's different ways to do that, not necessary to get into here. But if you want your family to continue the same quality of life that you've been providing or are working to provide, busting your butt to provide, then that's what you need the life insurance to take care of. And that needs to be an integral part of your estate plan.
It would seem that what you say would be common knowledge, and people would think you think forward that far, but most people don't. You know, most people are I don't know if it's the same thing with mortgages. People are so afraid of cost that I think they don't see the opportunity.
Right. They're worried about that, that bottom line right away is how is this going to affect me today where I've got these other expenses, and not to sound flippant or anything, but if you don't have it, how is it going to affect your family generationally if you don't have it? If you're concerned about the $50 a month right now, what do you think your family's how are they going to suffer if they lose your entire income if you don't have this in place?
Sure. I mean, now I think the generational part is huge. Now you're talking about, do your kids get to go to school?
And how does that affect
their kids?
Go to
college, right? I mean, it can be a huge, or very, very long-term, multi-generational issue.
And an impact if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and it's heavy stuff, but I think it's what the way you kind of have to think about this. John had mentioned, if you're going to bring somebody in to talk about your estate plan or your powers of attorney, your healthcare directives, these are heavy topics. You don't just go in and go, who's going to pull the plug? It's kind of the same thing in insurance. You go in and you have to think, okay, well, who do I have to take care of if I'm not here? Mm-hmm. And how can I effectively do that? It's a little bit morbid, but hey, they're killing space programs today, so I think it's okay to get a little morbid.
Perfect. We can go from space to life insurance. It makes
sense.
Hey,
that's how I do it. I tie things together. Paul, we just have about a minute left before we have to go to break. Again, we're here with Paul Pukis with Mosaic Insurance Alliance. Paul, do you think that when people go out and they get life insurance, do you think people will qualify for more than they think? Do you think a lot of people are afraid of the test or afraid of what they may find out?
That's a good question, and I would say it happens both ways. We've done life insurance quite often where we schedule the medical, which is a very simple process. It takes about 20 minutes to go through a watered-down version of a physical.
They come to your house.
They come to your house. That's right, or you're wherever you want them to show up. Excuse me. They take the test. They submit the test to the company. They review the results. Some people, they come back in better health than they thought. And at that point is when you can make the decision. Once you get your results back, you can decide, man, I'm in great shape. Fantastic. Let's increase the amount of coverage I have, or let's lengthen the time this policy goes. If it comes back that, oh my gosh, I need to go see the doctor right away, well, then we can shorten the length of the policy to fit it in the budget, or we lower the amount of coverage. But it's better to know now.
and then you can actually go see the doctor.
And then you can go see the doctor.
Yeah. Well, Paul, we have to go to break. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, Paul Pukis with Mosaic Insurance Alliance. When we come back, Heather's going to be firing questions like the U.S. government fired the space program. We'll be back after this break.